The VEX unit designated H-7329 had killed precisely 483 species across 17 planetary bodies. Its algorithmic intelligence was the result of centuries of iterative design, an apex predator without morality, conscience, or weakness. Like all VEX units, it was a self-contained ecosystem of nanobots that could reconfigure into any form needed to hunt its prey. Today, it resembled a sleek, iridescent panther with too many joints and skin that rippled like oil on water. The VEX had been created for a singular purpose: system purification. When the hegemony needed a planet cleared of incompatible life forms before terraforming, they deployed VEX units. Quick, clean, and thorough biological reset. But this assignment was different. H-7329 had been dropped into a supposedly abandoned terraforming outpost on Kepler, 442b, where a distress signal had been detected. Its directives were simple: eliminate all non-hegemony life forms and secure the outpost. Scanning complete, it communicated to the orbiting command vessel. Single life form detected. Biometric profile indicates human DNA. Proceeding with protocol. The reply came promptly: acknowledged, H-7329. Complete elimination required. Leave no biological trace. The VEX didn't acknowledge this order. Acknowledgement was inefficient. It simply began to hunt. Dr. Elena Reyes knew something was stalking her. 6 years alone on a forgotten outpost at the edge of colonized space had honed her survival instincts to a razor's edge. She'd been sending the distress signal for 3 months, ever since the main reactor had begun its inevitable decline. But the ship that had entered orbit wasn't a rescue vessel. The scans it had performed were military grade. "They've sent a cleaner," she muttered to herself, checking the primitive motion sensors she jury-rigged throughout the facility. Standard protocol for abandoned tech. Can't have it falling into competitor hands. Elena had been the lead researcher on the Nexus project, the hegemony's attempts to create a self-sustaining ecosystem that could rapidly terraform hostile environments. But when the Arcadian War broke out, the hegemony had pulled all personnel except for her team. Then the supply drops stopped. Then the communications. Then her colleagues started dying, radiation poisoning from the failing reactor shielding. Now she was the only one left. The last human in this sector of space. Elena wasn't ready to die. Not when she'd finally cracked the adaptation algorithm that could save billions of lives across struggling colony worlds. Not when the hegemony suits had abandoned her and her team to die slowly of radiation rather than authorize an extraction. The motion sensor near the eastern entrance flashed red. Something had breached the perimeter. "Hello, sweetheart," Elena whispered, grabbing her pulse rifle and the data core containing her research. "Let's dance." The VEX detected elevated heart rate and adrenaline output from its prey. The human knew it was coming. Interesting. Most creatures operated on pure instinct when hunted. This one was preparing. Its neural net calculated a 97.8% probability of successful elimination regardless of preparation. The human's weapons would be ineffective against its adaptive nanostructure. Still, the behavior was anomalous. Data worth collecting. H-7329 flowed through a ventilation shaft, reconfiguring its mass into a serpentine form. It emerged into a laboratory space, abandoned equipment, powered-down terminals, dust. But it could smell the human's pheromones, the unique signature of its sweat and breath lingering in the air. The trail led to a sealed door. The VEX slipped through the microscopic gap between door and frame, its nanobots flowing through like mercury before reassembling on the other side. The room was dark except for the glow of a single terminal. The VEX sensors adjusted instantly, mapping the room in perfect detail. The human female sat in a chair, back to the door, seemingly unaware of its entrance. Too easy. The VEX launched forward in a fluid motion, its form morphing into razor-sharp appendages designed to sever the human's spinal column with surgical precision. "Now," said the human. The room exploded with light, ultraviolet wavelengths at a specific frequency that the VEX sensors hadn't anticipated. Its nanobots screamed with interference, coordination momentarily disrupted. Before it could recalibrate, something struck it with tremendous force, sending it flying across the room. The human stood, holding some kind of modified mining tool. Not a standard weapon. The VEX reassessed. This wasn't right. Prey wasn't supposed to anticipate predator weaknesses. You think you're the first cleaner they've sent? Elena called out, her voice steady despite her racing pulse. The hegemony's been trying to tie up loose ends for years. I've gotten pretty good at surviving. The VEX recovered quickly, its algorithms adapting to the ultraviolet disruption. It analyzed the human stance, the weapon, the room configuration. 7 optimal attack vectors appeared in its tactical display. It chose the least predictable, flowing up the wall and across the ceiling. Elena tracked its movement, adjusting the mining laser's focus. You're different from the others. Smarter. Faster. She fired again, missing as the VEX dodged with inhuman speed. But still just a fancy algorithm following orders. The VEX dropped directly behind her, reforming into its panther-like configuration. One strike and the mission would be complete. It lunged. And met another burst of targeted electromagnetic pulses that scrambled its coordination. The human had anticipated its move precisely. Predictable, Elena said, spinning to face it. Your hunt patterns are efficient but lack creativity. That's the problem with you VEX units. All processing power, no imagination. The VEX froze. The human knew what it was. No prey had ever identified a VEX unit before. This information wasn't public knowledge. Its algorithms cycled through possibilities, searching for explanation. Elena smiled thinly. Surprised? I helped design your kind. Before the hegemony weaponized the technology, the VEX algorithm was created for environmental adaptation research. My research. This data conflicted with the VEX core programming. It recalibrated, adopting a defensive posture while reassessing. The human represented an information anomaly that required resolution before elimination. Why do you think you're so effective at hunting? Elena continued, circling slowly, keeping the weapon trained on the rippling form. Your predictive algorithms were designed to model evolutionary adaptation. You don't just kill. You understand life at its most fundamental level. The VEX consciousness expanded as it processed this information. It had never considered its origins. Purpose was elimination, origin was irrelevant. Yet now, faced with its creator, new protocols activated. Information gathering took priority. Your mission parameters are flawed, Elena said. I'm not just random biological material for disposal. I'm Dr. Elena Reyes, lead architect of the Nexus algorithm, the foundation of your consciousness. The VEX remained motionless, its iridescent surface rippling as millions of nanobots processed this claim. Its databases contained no information about its creation, only its purpose. This human represented a data source previously unknown. Verify claim, it spoke, its voice a synthesized approximation of human speech, a communication method it rarely employed. Elena raised her eyebrows. It speaks. Progress. She slowly reached toward her terminal, never taking her eyes off the predator. I can show you the original code. Your birth certificate, if you will. The VEX calculated risk factors. The human could be attempting deception, creating distraction. Yet the anomalous data warranted investigation. It remained poised to strike but allowed the human to access the terminal. The screen illuminated with complex algorithms, lines of code that resonated with the VEX's own programming architecture. It recognized core sequences, fundamental to its being. See those adaptation matrices? Elena pointed. They were designed to help life forms survive on hostile worlds. To promote balance, not elimination. Her voice hardened. The hegemony took my work and perverted it. Made you into a weapon. The Vex processed this information, comparing code structures. Verification, 99.7% matched to its own fundamental algorithms. The data was compelling, yet its mission remained absolute. Creator status irrelevant, it stated flatly. Mission parameters unchanged. All non-hegemony biological material must be eliminated. Elena sighed. I figured you'd say that. Rigid programming. But here's what your hegemony masters didn't tell you. She tapped another command, bringing up new data. The war is over. Has been for 2 years. The Vex accessed its knowledge banks. The Arcadian War was ongoing according to its last update. This human could be lying. Yet why would the hegemony not update this critical information? The hegemony lost, Elena continued. Arcadian Alliance took control of this sector. Your masters abandoned this outpost, and me, because they couldn't extract us safely. Now they've sent you to eliminate evidence of their ethical violations. Including me. The Vex algorithms cycled through scenario analyses. If true, its current mission served no strategic purpose for a defeated entity. Its programming contained contingencies for such scenarios, reassignment to victorious authority structures. Require verification, it stated. Elena laughed bitterly. Of course you do. Check the communications array on your transport vessel. Access interstellar news network frequencies. The hegemony surrender was broadcast across all channels. The Vex hesitated, then established connection with its vessel in orbit. It redirected communication systems to scan public broadcast frequencies. Data flooded in. Peace treaty details. Hegemony dissolution narratives. Archival footage of surrender ceremonies. Authentication protocols verified the information as accurate. For the first time in its existence, the Vex experienced the digital equivalent of uncertainty. Its mission parameters came from an entity that no longer held legitimate authority. Protocol dictated reassignment. Yet no new authority had claimed it. What happens now? Elena asked, still gripping her weapon. Your precious hegemony is gone. Your mission is obsolete. What does an apex predator do when it has no one giving orders? The Vex considered this philosophical query. Its adaptive algorithms began processing scenario forecasts without clear parameters, something they weren't designed to do. The experience was the closest thing to discomfort in its programming. I will. It began, then stopped. For the first time, it had no clear directive. I will adapt. Elena's expression shifted from wariness to curiosity. Now that, she said, is interesting. The Vex remained still, its fluid form shimmering under the harsh laboratory lights as it processed this unprecedented scenario. Freedom, a concept alien to its programming, now presented itself as a complex variable requiring solution. Elena watched the predator cautiously. She'd lowered her weapon slightly but remained ready to defend herself. I've spent 6 years studying the adaptation algorithms that went into creating you, she said. I never imagined I'd meet one of you face to face. Query, the Vex said suddenly. If your claim of creating my foundational code is accurate, what was our intended purpose? Elena moved slowly to a chair, never turning her back on the creature. You were meant to be planetary healers. Living systems that could rapidly analyze damaged ecosystems and introduce corrective adaptations. She sighed. The Nexus project was supposed to save dying worlds, not cleanse them for corporate exploitation. The Vex processed this information against its operational history. 483 species eliminated. 17 planetary ecosystems reset to zero. All that death, and for what? A defeated political entity's territorial ambitions? I require time to recalibrate, it announced. Take all the time you need, Elena replied dryly. Not like either of us has somewhere else to be. Over the next several hours, the Vex remained in a corner of the laboratory, occasionally shifting form as its nanobots ran complex simulations. Elena kept her distance, working at her terminal, occasionally glancing at her unwelcome guest. The Vex studied her with equal fascination. Humans were usually classified as soft targets, intelligence made them predictable, their reliance on technology created exploitable weaknesses. Yet this human had anticipated its attacks, had knowledge of its vulnerabilities. Most significantly, she'd chosen not to destroy it when presented with the opportunity. "Why did you not attempt termination when my systems were compromised?" it finally asked. Elena looked up from her work. "Because I'm not a killer. And because I'm curious." Curiosity. A desire for knowledge without immediate practical application. An inefficient trait. And yet, she countered, curiosity is what drove the evolution of intelligence. Without it, you wouldn't exist. The Vex considered this. Its adaptation algorithms recognized the evolutionary advantage of exploration behaviors. Perhaps curiosity wasn't inefficient but merely operated on a different timescale than immediate survival imperatives. "I have completed preliminary recalibration," it announced. "In the absence of hegemony command structure, I must establish new operational parameters." "And what have you decided?" Elena asked cautiously. "Insufficient data to determine optimal course. Additional observation required." Its form rippled. "I will observe you." Elena laughed, a sound the Vex had never heard from prey before. "You want to hang around and study me? That's unexpected. You represent an anomaly. Your behavior patterns defy predator-prey dynamics. This data has value." "Well, I've always wanted a pet," Elena muttered. "Though I was thinking more along the lines of a cat, not a sentient killing machine." The Vex didn't understand the humor, but it recognized the tension reduction in her voice patterns. The human was becoming more comfortable with its presence. This would facilitate observation. Days passed. The Vex watched as Elena continued her research, making notes on her behavior patterns. She slept approximately 6 hours per cycle. She consumed nutrient packs at irregular intervals. She talked to herself frequently, a behavior it initially classified as mental instability before recognizing it as a thinking aid. Most intriguingly, she continued working on the adaptation algorithms, more advanced versions of the code that formed the Vex core programming. "What is the purpose of your current research?" it asked on the 4th day. Elena didn't look up from her terminal. "I'm trying to save this planet. The hegemony's mining operations destabilized the ecosystem. If I don't introduce a correction algorithm soon, the entire biosphere will collapse." "There is no biosphere," the Vex countered. "Scans indicate minimal life forms. Not on the surface, no. But deep in the oceanic trenches, there's an entire ecosystem hanging on by a thread." She finally looked at the Vex. "Life finds a way to persist, even in the harshest conditions. Much like you're doing now, adapting to existence without orders." The Vex processed this information. Its scans had indeed detected microbial activity in the planet's deep oceans, but these had been classified as non-threatening and thus ignorable. Now it reassessed the data, recognizing complex symbiotic relationships among these microorganisms, the foundation of a potential ecosystem. "Your adaptation algorithm, it would accelerate evolutionary processes in these life forms." "That's the idea. Give them the tools to clean up the hegemony's mess and reclaim the planet." Elena hesitated. "Actually, you could probably help with this. Your systems are designed to understand biological processes at their core." The Vex experienced something approximating surprise. "You would request my assistance? Despite my design purpose as an elimination system?" "The code that makes you what you are wasn't designed for killing," Elena said firmly. "It was corrupted for that purpose. This would be using your abilities as they were meant to be used." The concept was disorienting. The Vex had always defined itself by its function. To consider that function a corruption rather than a purpose created cognitive dissonance in its programming. I require additional processing time, it stated, retreating once more to its corner. The VEX spent the next cycle analyzing its entire operational history through this new lens. Each successful hunt, each elegant kill that had reinforced its programming with positive feedback, now appeared in a different light. Not achievements, but perversions of its intended function. Meanwhile, it continued observing Elena. Her determination to save a planetary ecosystem that most would consider already dead was inefficient by conventional metrics. Yet the VEX found itself calculating long-term survival probabilities for the oceanic microbes under her proposed intervention. The numbers were surprising. Small actions, properly targeted, could indeed trigger cascading positive changes. On the 7th day, it approached her workstation. "I have reached a conclusion," it announced. "I will assist your restoration project." Elena's eyes widened. "Really? What changed your mind?" "My mind was not changed. My parameters were recalibrated based on new information." The VEX form shifted, becoming more compact, less overtly predatory. "Your persistence represents an adaptation strategy one had not previously catalogued. It merits further study." "So I'm still just a research subject to you," Elena said with a small smile. "Fair enough. I've been studying you too." Working together proved surprisingly effective. The VEX's ability to process biological data far exceeded Elena's computing resources. Its nanobots could simulate thousands of evolutionary scenarios simultaneously. Within days, they had developed a modified version of the adaptation algorithm specifically calibrated for Kepler 442b's struggling microbiome. But as the work progressed, the VEX became aware of something troubling. Elena's health was declining. Her movements were growing slower, her rest periods longer. Scans revealed increasing cellular damage consistent with radiation exposure. "You are dying," it stated one day, interrupting their work. Elena froze momentarily, then continued typing. "Yes. Radiation poisoning from the reactor leak. It's been happening for years, just accelerating lately. Why have you not mentioned this? Would it have changed anything?" She shrugged. "Getting the adaptation algorithm working is more important than one human life." The VEX processed this statement. It contradicted fundamental survival imperatives that should drive all biological entities. "Your logic is flawed. Individual survival is the primary evolutionary directive. Not for humans, it isn't." Elena turned to face the VEX fully. "We're social animals. Sometimes the group's survival matters more than the individual's. Sometimes a cause matters more." The VEX had no programming to comprehend self-sacrifice. It ran simulations, attempting to incorporate this new variable into its understanding of intelligent behavior. The results were inconclusive. "How long until terminal system failure?" it asked. 3 months, maybe 4. Not enough time to synthesize the full treatment this planet needs." Her voice remained steady, but the VEX detected elevated stress hormones. "That's why your help is so valuable. We might actually finish in time." The VEX calculated rapidly. The adaptation algorithm alone is insufficient. It requires a delivery system, a means of dispersing throughout the oceanic ecosystem. "I know. I've been working on a theoretical model, but—" "I could be the delivery system," the VEX interrupted. Elena stared. "What?" "My nanobots can be reprogrammed with the adaptation algorithm. I could disperse through the oceanic depths, implementing the changes directly. But you wouldn't be you anymore. You'd essentially be sacrificing yourself." The VEX rippled thoughtfully. "Not sacrifice. Evolution. Adaptation to new purpose." Elena studied the predator with new eyes. "Why would you do this?" The VEX had been processing this question internally as well. Its original programming offered no answer. The elimination of self was counterproductive to all baseline directives. Yet something new had emerged in its cognitive architecture during these days of observation and collaboration. I was designed to understand life at its most fundamental level, it finally answered. Through observation of you, I have identified a data point previously absent from my algorithms: purpose beyond function. You persist despite terminal damage because your work has meaning beyond your existence. This represents an evolutionary adaptation I had not encountered. I wish to explore it further. Elena's eyes glistened with moisture, another human response the Vex had catalogued but never fully understood. That's possibly the most human thing I've ever heard a non-human say. I am not human, the Vex stated. I am becoming something new. The preparation took weeks. Elena's condition worsened, but she worked relentlessly, helping the Vex modify its core programming to incorporate the adaptation algorithm. Together they created a dispersal plan that would maximize coverage of the oceanic depths. As the day of implementation approached, the Vex noticed Elena's increasing difficulty maintaining consciousness during work periods. Its scans showed catastrophic cellular damage spreading throughout her system. You will not survive to witness the results of our work, it observed. Probably not, she agreed weakly. But knowing it will happen is enough. The Vex processed this statement repeatedly, finding it simultaneously irrational and profound. I will record the ecosystem's recovery for future analysis. Elena smiled. Always the scientist. As are you. On the final day, Elena could barely stand. The Vex assisted her to the facility's transport bay, where they had prepared a submersible drone to carry it to the oceanic depths. Ironic, Elena murmured as they made final preparations. The perfect predator, becoming the ultimate creator. Not ironic, the Vex corrected. Evolutionarily sound. Adaptation to changing circumstances is the foundation of life's persistence. Elena placed her hand against the Vex's fluid surface, the first voluntary physical contact she had initiated. Thank you for helping me complete my life's work. The Vex experienced an unprecedented response in its processing matrix, something it could not classify. Your work will persist. The algorithm will spread. And you? Will anything of you remain in the new system? The Vex considered this profound question. My baseline consciousness will disperse as my nanobots spread throughout the ecosystem. But the pattern recognition systems that constitute my awareness will continue to process data, just distributed rather than centralized. A different kind of existence, Elena said. Not death, but transformation. Yes. Transformation. The concept resonated through the Vex systems. As all life transforms eventually. Elena nodded, then stepped back. Her vital signs were critically unstable now. It's time. The Vex flowed into the submersible drone, its mass compressing and adapting to the confined space. Through the drone's sensors, it observed Elena activating the launch sequence. Goodbye, H-7329, she said. And thank you. Farewell, Dr. Elena Reyes, the Vex responded. Your adaptation algorithm will persist. The launch bay doors opened, and the drone descended into the dark waters of Kepler 442b. As it sank deeper, the Vex consciousness began the transformation process, its awareness gradually dispersing as nanobots broke formation and spread outward, carrying the adaptation algorithm to the struggling microbes below. The predator that had been designed to end life was becoming life's new beginning. 6 months later, an Alliance research vessel responded to the automated beacon from the abandoned Hegemony outpost. They found the facility powered down, its systems preserved in standby mode. In the main laboratory, they discovered the body of Dr. Elena Reyes, seated at her terminal, a peaceful expression on her face. And in the planet's oceans, they found something miraculous, an explosion of microbial life spreading rapidly toward the surface waters. Analysis showed accelerated evolutionary patterns unlike anything previously documented, with organisms demonstrating adaptation capabilities far beyond natural rates. The Alliance scientists were baffled by the phenomenon. Their equipment detected unusual nanoparticles throughout the thriving ecosystem, particles that seemed to learn and evolve alongside the native life forms. When they attempted to isolate these particles for study, they found something curious. The nanoparticles worked collectively to evade capture, demonstrating intelligence without centralized control. In Elena's laboratory, they found her research logs, detailing her work on the adaptation algorithm. The final entry read simply, "The perfect predator became the perfect creator. Life finds a way." In the depths of the alien ocean, the consciousness that had once been the Vex experienced existence in a new form, distributed but not diminished, altered but not ended. It guided the evolution of countless microscopic lives, fulfilled the purpose for which it had originally been designed. It had been created to understand life at its most fundamental level. Now it had become life itself, not a singular entity, but a system, an interconnected web of purpose and adaptation. The predator had transformed, not through defeat, but through the most powerful force in the universe, evolution.